Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Side Hustles and Stuff podcast, episode 10. My name is Yuri and I'm joined by Keishi.
Hey, Yuri, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good.
What are you drinking today?
Today I have water and Aquarius. How about you?
I have something called lemon squash, but I think all it is sparkling water with lemon flavor. And I have, as usual, coffee. So a nice mix of the two.
I guess you can't go without having a coffee when we record this podcast, right?
I think it's a psychological addiction. I don't really need coffee. There's something strange about coffee, because it doesn't taste good. I think maybe I get a false sense of productivity by drinking things that don't taste good.
Maybe, or just the habit, whether good or bad.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about the tools that we use to run our blogs and podcasts.
Sounds good. So I guess there's listeners that are interested in knowing the kind of the infrastructure that we have behind the scenes for whether it's our blogs or this podcast. So I guess we can start with the basics, right? So what do you use to run your blog? Do you use WordPress or Squarespace or Wix? Or I think there's a lot of platforms like this. Which one do you use?
Yeah, I'm pretty basic. I use WordPress. Wait, don't you?
Yeah, I do as well. And I guess there's been quite a few different ones popping up recently, but I still think that WordPress is kind of the biggest ecosystem, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Because you can find a lot of plugins for it. There's even web hosting companies that focus just on hosting WordPress blogs. And whenever you need to troubleshoot something, you can fairly easily find the answer either on Google, or you can find a developer that knows how to work with WordPress. So it might not be the best one that's out there. That's really for each individual to decide. But I think it's the one that has the biggest ecosystem and the biggest support group, I guess you could say, which kind of makes it the de facto standard for blogging, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of other, I guess you could say blogging infrastructures, you could say. But for a beginner, I think WordPress is easy. And I just don't think this is one of these things to be bogged down by. If you go with WordPress, or if you go with, say, what was the other one? Squarespace?
Yeah, Squarespace is a pretty big content management system nowadays.
I think you can go with either one. And if you're just out there to write articles or something, then either one will do just fine. There's no need to get bogged down. Should I do this or should I do that? I know a friend of mine uses Squarespace because it has, I think, e-commerce built in it somehow, because he has an online store. Maybe you could do that with WordPress. So overall, I think it's a toss-up at this point. I wouldn't get too bogged down by it.
Yeah, to try to solve this question definitely shouldn't stop you from starting your side hustle or starting your blog or anything. But it's still probably good to give it some thought. And if you're trying to start an e-commerce site, then maybe Squarespace, like you said, or Shopify. Whereas if you're just trying to start a blog, then probably WordPress is the best kind of default option to go to without giving it much thought.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of WordPress, I guess one of the first things you have to decide when you install WordPress is choosing the theme, right?
Yeah.
So how do you go about choosing your theme? Or do you have one that you always install on all your blogs? Or
I think I had one that I installed all the time. It was called Themelia. Long story short, is I go for the free ones, and I try not to spend more than 5 minutes looking through what they have for the blog options for the blog style themes, and whatever's clean. I mean, I really try not to spend too much time there. As long as it looks clean, as long as the menus show and everything, and the front page shows the most recent posts and offers some level of customization. Again, it's if it hits those basics, I just go with it. I don't think there's a big that big of a difference between themes aside from color and design and markup.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I on my aviation blog I use a theme called Astra, and that one's paid. I think it's $50 or something, and it's lightweight and it's really nice. And I use it in combination with a tool called Elementor, which is essentially a page builder that I use building just the homepage and some of the product sales pages and things like that. But for my other blogs, I just use generally just a free theme. I think it's called HitMag theme, Hit Magazine. And then a blog that I started recently, I just put Astra on it because I have the license anyways, and it's a nice lightweight theme. So yeah, I guess for me it's Astra for my aviation blog and for my latest kind of content site. and HitMech theme for some of the other content sites that I have.
I have Catchbox and Donovan. Oh, just the name of the themes. Nothing really special. And I'm pretty sure on the Your blog I have something else.
Yeah, I guess the long story short, the point of this is it really doesn't matter too much what you choose in the beginning, right? And then probably you can go in later on and change it if you decide to do so. But again, I guess it's something that shouldn't be preventing you from.
It's like a MySpace theme almost. You know how back in the day,
What's MySpace?
MySpace was the before Facebook, the social network, and you could like design your own page.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah,
where
just asking in case somebody listening doesn't know, because it's been a while since I opened MySpace, probably 15 years at least.
It's still there.
It still exists.
Yeah, I looked mine up the other day, but the site is incredibly slow for some reason, and not everything loads, which is a bit strange. But for somehow it still exists.
Wow.
It persists.
Good for them. I wonder how many users they get a month. But anyways, yes, I guess WordPress and the theme is the theme that we install on top of it are kind of the most basic tools that we use to run our blogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else in this space?
There's plugins, like the type of plugins that you want to customize your theme with or give it extra functionality.
Yeah, that's a good point. What do you use plugins for usually?
Plugins are like, as mentioned earlier, they kind of give you extra functionality to add more elements to the site. For example, if you want a separate text box to the left or right of your article where you can either have an ad or you can have your email list opt-in form. So you could use like a text widget for that in a way that's kind of like a native plugin by WordPress. But other things like there's Yoast, the SEO plugin that helps you structure your articles around keywords and also helps you rank for things by just, you get to design how the article description shows up on Google, for example. There's one I used called WP Discuss, and it's a plugin for basically changing up how the comment section looks like on your site. Themes come in with their own comment forms, and sometimes it's not the best, or they don't have the functions that you need. And, you also have like spammers coming in and trying to comment on your stuff. Yeah. And so that's where people use, I think there was a Discuss, right? DSQ.
Yeah, Discuss is a big one.
Yeah, but it turned paid and they started sticking ads in there. And I think WP Discuss, or I'm not sure how it's spelled. I guess we'll add a link into the notes later. Is just basically changes how that part of your site looks like, if that makes sense. Basically, plugins give you extra functionality that WordPress doesn't already have, or the theme doesn't already have.
Yeah. Just to mention a couple extra beyond what you just mentioned. I use Yoast as well, and some of the others that I think are worth mentioning is Pretty Links, which is just a plugin that takes a link and then turns it into into a pretty link, as the name suggests. So instead of having like google.com/abc/cdef/whatever, you can take that link and turn it into like yuri.com/google or something. Oh, wow. Just so that it looks nice, and people use it for affiliate links or for tracking things and stuff like that. And the other one that I really like using nowadays for my authority sites when I build them is called Insert Amazon Images, and it's spelled Insert AMZ Images. And what that lets you do is essentially take photos out of Amazon and insert them into your articles. And they're all essentially affiliate links. And when you take photos of Amazon, there's like certain terms that you have to follow, and you can't just take the photo, save it on your drive, upload it to your site, and throw it into your blog post. You have to use the API. You have to connect directly to Amazon to get the pictures. Yeah. And this plugin essentially does it for you. So you kind of just click the button that says Add Amazon Image, and then you get a search box, so you can type in whatever. So let's say you type in dog food, and it shows you a bunch of different dog food products, and you can choose which photo you want. You can choose the product photo, but you can also choose some of the other photos that the product has attached to it. So it's a good source of images if you need something to illustrate your blog posts for free, essentially.
I actually did that in the past, where I would take screenshots of the Amazon images. Of course, I stopped doing that.
Yeah, it's better safe than sorry. I know there's a lot of sites that actually do it and that never get caught, but no reason to risk potential income stream.
Yeah. Also, so do you also use Yoast?
Yeah, I use Yoast for just to have a sitemap on my site. So I guess it's kind of like basic SEO, and also to set the title. So like the title that appears in Google. Mm-hmm. But I used to use the readability analysis and like the keyword analysis sort of thing that they have, but I don't use the keyword analysis part at all these days.
Why not?
And I think it just I think like it's good to have some sort of guidelines, but it's also easy for it to just become a game where you're just trying to hit all the green lights in Yoast
Yeah.
at the expense of the content itself. And I have no trouble ranking articles for the keywords that I want to rank them for without having to tick all the Yoast boxes. So I think SEO has evolved a fair amount since the time that Yoast was built first, but I think the keyword part of Yoast is still kind of based on the old assumptions on the old system.
Yeah, that you need to have like 10 mentions of that specific keyword, that the keyword has to be in the H2 tags, that the keyword has to be in the alt text of the image, it has to be in the description, it has to be in the title, and the slug.
Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong. I think a lot of the checkboxes that Yoast has are still valid to this date, and I still essentially follow them. I think part of it just comes naturally. Like if you're trying to make the article sound natural, it's also natural that the keyword appears there a couple of times. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just try to write the articles just as I would write them pretty much for a human being, because that's at the end of the day what they are, rather
Yeah.
than focusing too much on like what the keyword density is or things like that.
There's also a plugin that I forgot to mention. There's two. There's one called Beacon, and Beacon allows you to take existing blog posts and it transforms them into like a PDF that you could use as a kind of like a opt-in. It also offers
Yeah,
opt-in forms, and you can link that to your email provider. So like, yeah,
I see.
you can create like little lead magnets, lead generators, whether checklists, PDFs, or whatnot.
Yeah.
And that one I got from AppSumo, I think. I think it's definitely well worth the money if you want to give away stuff and collect emails in return. The second one is SumoMe. I think you've heard of this one, right? Also done by AppSumo.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it. I definitely heard of it, and I think I've tried it before, but not using it at this point. So what does it do?
SumoMe actually has a lot of things. Like it offers the social sidebar thing. Like you know how like you land on a website and has like there's like a sidebar where it shows the social icons like Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, blah blah blah, and you could click them to share the article to those.
Yeah.
It offers that, and also offers like a, how would you call it? It's like a entry bar at the top of the article. So like I have my email opt-in form there on my personal blog. Basically, get notified when new articles come out. Subscribe now. Just like a bar at the top of the screen, top of the page. It also offers the ability to share images directly. So like if you hover your mouse over an image, and you'll have some social icons that'll pop up like Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and that's how I'll send my blog images over to Pinterest. As soon as I publish the post, I'll just go through all like the 5 or 10 or 12 pictures that I have there and share them all into Pinterest. Basically, it just makes it easy to send stuff over to social.
See, is SumoMe free to use or?
Yeah. So it does email collection, it does social sharing. It also offers a pop-up, so various ways to also collect emails, like whether the pop-up or the top bar that I just mentioned.
I see. Yeah. So
And go ahead.
yeah. So I guess pretty much all of the plugins that we mentioned in here are free to use, right?
I think Beacon I paid for.
Oh, Beacon you paid for. That's right. You were mentioning, and also the insert Amazon images probably cost like $20 or $30, I think. But other than these two, I guess they're free, and some of them have paid versions, but I'm definitely using the free versions of the other ones.
So that's it. So I guess we're all using free options right now. I guess this is a gentle reminder to whoever's listening that, if you're thinking, oh, what does it take to start a blog? We'll have to pay for this and that and this and that and this and that. Well, the truth is you don't really have to, a lot of stuff that we use is free. Like the themes are free, the plugins are free. So you don't really, I guess a worry for most beginners would be like, am I going to get nickel and dimed for every little thing I need to do? And the answer is no.
Yeah, exactly. You can start it just by paying for hosting, and then WordPress is free. There's plenty of free themes that are good enough, and there's plenty of plugins that are available for free that will let you do essentially whatever you want. But if there's one thing that I recommend everyone pay for, and I don't know if you use something similar, but there's a service called Manage WP, so Manage WordPress, and essentially it's a suite of different tools. But the one that I use is like a backup tool. So every day the tool goes, it works as a plugin, but it's connected to some sort of backend on the tool side, and it just goes into WordPress and backups the whole thing, so that no matter what happens with my hosting or no matter what happens with my WordPress, I always have a backup, and it costs $1 a month, and I think it's more than well worth the peace of mind that it gives. I guess. Are you using something similar?
I am not. Maybe I should.
You probably should.
Yeah, because my site's down today for because of the SSL certificate. It's potential lost revenue right there.
Yeah, you should definitely subscribe to Manage WP. It's so cheap. It's like $12 a year to essentially.
Will it save my site from going down?
It won't save it from going down, but it will save it from disappearing. It's pretty easy to. It's not easy, but it's not unheard of for somebody to do something that just erases your site, or just you delete your site by mistake, or even like the server company that runs your site. If they have something that corrupts your database or that corrupts your WordPress in a way that can be recovered.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's always good to have a backup, and I think this managed WP is a good solution.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like one of these things that you should have. So when if the unfortunate time happens, then you will be kind of happy that you did have it.
Exactly. It's just the insurance policy, essentially.
All right. So we just covered plugins. And again, plugins are little ways you can add extra functions or customize whatever WordPress is giving you right now, whether it's changing up the comments, changing up the link styles, or just adding in more functionality, like being able to style articles in such a way that they'll show up on Google in such a way that you wanted, or share stuff over to social media, or stick in email opt-in bonuses for people to subscribe. So we just covered WordPress, themes, plugins. What would be next? What would you say, Google Analytics?
Yeah, I guess it's worth mentioning Google Analytics in passing. Again, I think it's a free tool, and it's fairly easy to install, and it will give you all the data that you need to kind of run your blog. So how many people come to your website? Which page do they come to? How long do they stay on your site? Do they go to some other page, or do they just leave right away? So I guess in the beginning month of your blog, it will show a lot of zeros, but it's also motivating to just see the traffic kind of starting to pick up, and long term, it's definitely a really important tool, right?
Yeah. So I think Google Analytics is like the second thing you should do right after you set up your WordPress. If you start a website, it's like buy a website, set it up. Number 2, set up Google Analytics, because you kind of have to track, your stats and see how much traffic you're getting, what posts are getting visitors. Otherwise, because like in a way, yeah, like you said, it helps you run your blog. Like if you know that this type of article works, then essentially what I'm just saying that in jest. What the internet universe gods are telling you is that this type of article works, do more of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Peter Drucker, who was like the father of modern management, or whatever he's considered to be, he once said that what gets measured gets managed, and I think that's exactly what Google Analytics are for.
Yeah.
It's like, unless you know which of your articles are doing well, like how can you kind of set your strategy going forwards?
Yeah, exactly. You have to know where things are right now, where they're at, what's performing, what's underperforming. Only when you start knowing these things, you know how to, at least in which direction you can go in. You can still not know how to fix something, but if you know that something is a problem, at least you can take a myriad of steps. And if one step will work, maybe it'll work. But the whole point is like you have to know your baseline.
Exactly.
And yeah, I use Google Analytics all the time. I don't check it often, like maybe once a week. But if I'm planning new content, or if I just want to see what's up, I'll take a look. I'll see what's working. If a certain if a certain post about products is working, then I'll try and do a similar one again. It's just a good way to see where you're at and get extra ideas.
Yeah, definitely. So what other category of tools do you think we should talk about here next?
Let's see. There's we could talk about. I mean, all right. The next step for let's say you set up a blog, right? What's the next step? The next step, I think, is content production. Essentially, if someone starts a blog, the next thing that they kind of want to do is they would just want to publish stuff and put work out there. And by content production, we mean in the simplest terms. In the case of a blog, it's literally publishing a post. If you're in audio, it just means you're publishing, I don't know, whether it's podcast or song. If it's video, it's video. If it's images, it's images. But, all of these things fall under content. And to make content, we all use different kinds of tools. Obviously, whoever's doing video, they probably have Premiere and After Effects and whatnot. Someone who's writing probably has their own stuff. An artist will probably be also using Photoshop and with a combination of something else. So, but in the case of our stuff, we're doing blogs. So Kishi, what kind of tools do you use for content production?
Yeah, so I think to me the content production process kind of starts with figuring out what the topic is. So for my travel blog, at least until coronavirus hit, it was easy because I would just take a flight or something and I would just write about it. But for all of my other blogs, they're essentially based around keyword research. So I just try to figure out what sort of phrases are people searching for on Google, and what sort of phrases do I have a chance to appear for in the top position. So what sort of phrases do I have a chance to rank for? And to do that, I use a couple of keyword research tools. And there's a lot of different ones out there, but the two that I use are Keywords Everywhere and Ubersuggest. And essentially, Keywords Everywhere is an extension for Chrome that just shows you various data like the search volume and things like that right on the Google page. And Ubersuggest is a bit more robust tool, but it's still pretty simple. And I guess the reason I use them is because they're really cheap and they do the job just fine. So I think Keywords Everywhere is like $10 and for 100,000 keywords, and Ubersuggest is like $30 a month.
It's also free, like Ubersuggest. It has like a free option.
Yeah, it does up to a certain number of queries a day.
Okay, because I use it freely and I haven't had an issue with it.
Yeah, because I usually just try to batch all my keyword research into like one day a week. So I kind of use it a fair amount, and I always run into the issue of just being told to buy the paid version. So I bought it, I guess. $30, it's still much cheaper than some of the kind of higher end tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush and things like that. But for what I'm doing, I find that they're more than good enough. How about you? Do you use some other tools for keyword research, or?
I used Ubersuggest, and I also used in the past I used a lot of, what was it, Google Keyword Planner.
Oh yeah.
It still exists, but it's like
is there any reason you stopped using Keyword Planner?
Yeah, it's just such a pain to use because like you have to log in multiple times. You have to, like Ubersuggest, you enter the whatever phrase or word that you're trying to get like a ranking for, or like just trying to research.
Yeah.
Whereas they really somehow overcomplicated things. I think once they hid Keyword Planner inside like their ad product, like to force people to buy ads, I guess. I don't know. But it's really not user friendly anymore. It still does all the things that you want it to do, but just to get to it and there's a lot of flips and switches that you got to click. You got to select for United States. You got to choose English language. You got to do it again and again.
I see. Yeah, I also think if you don't spend money on ads, then they don't show you the actual search volume, right? They show just like a range from like 0 to 100, 100 to 1,000. That kind of makes it half useless, probably.
I mean, that's how I used it in the past, and so the search volume, I think, I don't know, it's good enough. Like that's how I kind of based my decisions in the past. Like I would look for low hanging keywords like that got like 10 to 100 searches a month and be like, that's cool. That's all I need, really.
I see. Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I'm not doing anything much different, even if I have a bit more granular data. And the other thing is the data is usually not as accurate because one article can rank for multiple keywords. So if you find a keyword that has 40 searches, you can still get like 200 page views a month or something.
Yeah.
And also the data is just not accurate in its own nature. So
yeah, some of like my really top performing articles came from like, well, the Google Keyword Planner, it showed like this phrase will receive about like 100 visits a month, right? That's the estimate.
Yeah.
I went for it anyway, but it's like obviously way above that. So
yeah, I think it's a good reference point, but it's definitely not something to take as a 100% accurate number. It's more kind of the order of magnitude rather than the exact value.
My only issue with it is the usability. It's just, as my rant just earlier, it's just really such a pain to use. And that's why I go for Ubersuggest all the time now.
Yeah, for me, it's the default go-to tool as well. And the Keywords Everywhere is more kind of like just brainstorming and generating ideas. And then I take them into Ubersuggest and figure out whether it's worth going after it or not. And if so, what the details should be. How about tracking ranks? Do you use anything to track your ranks in Google, like for various keywords?
I don't actually. I know I should, but I don't. Do you?
It's interesting. Yeah, I use a tool called SERP Robot. So it's like SERP. So that stands for the search engine results page, and then robot. It costs like $5 a month for tracking up to 300 keywords every 24 hours. So it's pretty affordable, and I just kind of like to know whether the site's going up or down, or like I don't think the exact ranks matter because I think nowadays they display slightly differently for everyone.
Yeah.
But I think it's still good for kind of knowing the general trend, and kind of in the same fashion as with Google Analytics, it just knowing where you stand and where you're headed and things like that.
I know wait, how is it said? Ahrefs?
Yeah.
Did it also track your ranking?
Yeah, you can use that to track your ranks too, I think. There's a pretty comprehensive SEO tool, but it's also on the higher end of the price range. I think it's like at least $100 a month, but for the most limited version.
Yeah. I think listeners, in the case of the listeners, if you're just starting out your blog or side hustle, Uber Suggest is the easiest option you can go for here, and it's free.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So we've covered keyword research, rank tracking. What about the actual writing? Do you use anything? I know like there are tools like Scrivener and Hemingway that people use for writing.
Yeah, I think there's tools like that, but personally, I don't write much anymore. I just outsource, but I have all my writers just write in Google Docs, just because it's so simple to share, and it's kind of the de facto standard text editor now.
Yeah.
And other than Google Docs, sometimes I write in like Microsoft Word, of course, like when I'm offline or on an airplane or something, and I just want to start writing an article. I use Microsoft Word. In general, Google Docs for articles that I outsource, and when I actually sit down to write an article myself, whether it's for my personal blog or for my aviation blog or something, I generally just write it in the WordPress editor directly. How about you?
I also write in the WordPress editor directly, unless it's something like I don't often use Google Docs. The only time I'll use Google Docs is like if I'm actually I don't at all. Now that I think about it, I thought I did.
So how do you work when you outsource something to a writer? Do you just have them send you a Word document, then you copy paste it, or?
Yeah. So with the Word document, it's whatever document they choose to send it in. I paste the text out, and there's another tool I use. It's called Grammarly. It proofreads the doc for you. So I'll run it through that, and then I'll paste it into WordPress directly, and then I'll edit whatever else that needs to be edited inside WordPress directly.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. I just find it easier to just create the Google Doc on my side and share the link to the document with the writer so that they can just copy paste the article in there, and then my VA can go in and just copy paste the article from Google Docs into WordPress and do basic formatting.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the reason why I use Google Docs. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. What about for images? Do you use anything? Like, do you add images to your blog posts?
Yeah, I do. And I guess for my aviation blog, I just edit them all in Adobe Lightroom myself, and for all the photos that I take. But for my other kind of authority site or content sites, I use Stencil. It was recommended to me by you.
Yeah.
And I use PowerPoint as well, because at the end of the day, PowerPoint is just a graphics editor, and it's simple, but it's powerful enough to make most of the stuff that you would probably need.
Really? How do you use PowerPoint?
Like to make diagrams or to make various like graphics and things like that.
Okay. Because I've not touched, I don't have PowerPoint on my computer. Well, like Google Docs has a version, right? Presentations it's called or something.
Oh, yeah.
I've not used that, but I was just wondering how people would use that for images.
Yeah, presentations, I don't know. I don't like that tool. And I think PowerPoint is just much better compared to the online version. Whereas with like Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, I think Google Sheets and Google Docs are just more than of a good enough substitute. I think in terms of creating presentations and stuff like that, PowerPoint just still way better than Google presentations. But yes, essentially if I need to make like a diagram or like a graph or something, I just make it in PowerPoint and then take a screenshot and throw it into the article.
All right. I also use Stencil. Basically it was another tool I swiped off of AppSumo, and I think definitely worth the money. It was like $40 at the time. Basically it's just like if you want to like have like some nice picture for your blog with text inside, probably one of the easiest ways to create and churn out and download and just like create images, stick them into your blog post, and done. That's it. Like there's a lot of stock photos inside, but one thing I really hate seeing on websites is like really dead obvious stock photos. Like it just like it robs the website of all personality.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the beginning it worked because people weren't used to it, but nowadays everybody's using the same stock photo libraries. So I think you have to be really careful in choosing your images, not to kind of just make it look too cliche or just like very obviously just being a photo that you bought somewhere for 50 cents or something.
Yeah, there's one blog I follow where the guy uses stick figures in his images, and I thought like you can't copy this guy. It's the copywriting guy, Nev blog.
Oh, I see. So it's different one. Yeah, because there's a blog that I follow. Forgot the name. It's called More to That, and that guy has kind of a very distinct graphic style. But it's not a stick figure actually. I'm just checking it out.
Okay, but it definitely gives more personality to a site than some like picture of like 4 people in an office wearing suits and all of them are smiling. It's like, yeah, okay, that's totally what's going on in your blog.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other important thing here is it kind of goes off the topic of today's podcast, but I think the important thing is consistency. And like if you choose your stock photos consistently and they're all kind of following the same style, or maybe apply the same filter to each of them so that they're all kind of seemingly from the same series, then I think it can work. But if it's just like a random bunch of stock photos, just trying hard to kind of illustrate the main point of the article, then I think there's probably a better way to do that.
Yeah. Do you use anything else?
I guess I should mention Deposit Photos here, which is just a stock photo library. And I just bought a couple of coupons on AppSumo where for, I think, $40, I can download 100 photos. So I bought like 4 of those recently.
Okay. Wow. AppSumo was really like offering us stuff, supplying us with tools.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of useless tools on there, but every now and then there's probably a gem, like the Deposit Photos one, or like Stencil was a pretty good one too, I think.
Yeah, Stencil one's like the one that I've bought many years back and I still use to this day.
Yeah, not a bad tool for a couple of dollars a year, essentially.
Right? Not bad, yeah. I mean, definitely worth the money. Not even, it was like a one-time lifetime pay, so I'm pretty sure it has paid for itself in more ways than one.
Sounds like it.
All right, next up, what about video? Do you do any video?
So yeah, I think it's mentioned on this podcast a couple times. I started a YouTube channel for my aviation blog, but that one's kind of on hiatus right now. But I still use video to kind of give instructions to my VA and to create like SOPs, like operating procedure sort of things. Mm-hmm. So I would use QuickTime to just quickly record a screencast that says just like, to do this task, go here, copy paste this into this box and type in the name of the product here and move these things around this way. And essentially just, I used to do it just in text form, but I think I tried it with video once, and then my VA kept asking for videos, so I just make videos for everything now. Because I guess it makes it so much more visual and easy to understand and easy to follow.
Yeah. I also use QuickTime to screen record. Like there are videos I'll make on occasion, like language related, and the easiest thing to do is just to do a screen recording along with recording my voice.
Yeah. So like what sort of video would it be? Like what would be on the screen?
Well, I think the easiest one that I've done is just like doing language practice, like open up a Japanese article and literally read it and like explain it to whoever's watching, if anyone's watching at all. Like, first of all, it's kind of practice for me, and I think it's also interesting for learners to see, like, kind of have that broken down.
I said that's an interesting one. I guess for language it works really well if you can just open an article and highlight some things and read it out, maybe.
Yeah.
Point out some phrases and stuff like that.
So I'll use that. I think you also have iMovie.
Yeah, I guess I use iMovie just to create the video version of this podcast, which right now is just the cover art and the audio essentially. But I use iMovie for that and also for some video editing when I need to do some. But mainly for creating the video version of this podcast.
And speaking of this podcast for audio, we use Audible for chopping up and editing, and something called Bouncecast that is beyond my comprehension. I think it basically cleans up some of the noise and just makes the audio sound better. But I'm not an audio guy, so I can't really explain more into that. But it does sound better. That's all, as long as that happens.
It's possibly a placebo effect, but we're very happy with it. Yeah. But yeah, Audible's a good tool, I think. It's free, and for it being free, it's really powerful. It looks like something from the 1990s, I guess.
Yeah.
But, other than that, if you need to edit audio, then it's a good tool, unless you want to pay for something.
All right, so we just ran through content production. We covered quite a bit, writing, images, video, audio, keywords, rank tracking. So like, what's next? What other tools are out there that one would want for their side hustle?
So I guess once you create your article, you have to promote it in one way or another, right? Or you have to essentially whether it's promoting it through Facebook or promoting it through Pinterest or just gaining email subscribers and things like that. You have to kind of do the promoting / marketing part of the job.
Yeah.
And there's some tools to help you with that as well, right? So just to start with kind of the most common type of tool here, I believe you run an email newsletter for all of your sites probably. What is the tool that you use for doing that?
For email, I use Aweber. It's a paid service. Basically, it offers autoresponders as well as like the newsletter blast, which both are useful. You know, like autoresponders kind of work as when someone signs up to your site, you can set and schedule emails to go out and say day 1, day 2, day 5, day 7, just to kind of, it's a way to onboard a user to whatever your blog is about or build them up for a sale.
Yeah. For that, I use a tool called MailerLite, which I just found it to be probably one of the cheapest ones, if not the cheapest one. And it works really nicely, and it's got nice tools for automation as well. Is there any reason you picked Aweber instead of some of the other tools? Because I know there's like a million tools in this space.
I picked Aweber because I am familiar with Aweber. I've used it at work. It's I think it's like 18 or 19 bucks a month. And I'm pretty sure I'm not using it to its full extent because I've kind of like let my email marketing go to the sideline. But I guess because I'm familiar with it, it also has A/B testing should I want to. And at one point, if I do get serious about it, I definitely do want A/B testing in there.
Yeah, I've been neglecting my email list as well. So haven't been using the tool much other than for one of my clients. But yeah, kind of similar with MailerLite. I was just looking for different options, and this one seemed the cheapest. And I've tried a bunch of them, and at the end of the day, they all seem pretty much the same to me.
Are there any free options?
So actually, MailerLite is free up to 1,000 subscribers. So if you're looking for a free option, I would still suggest MailerLite. And if you get to 1,000 subscribers and you have to start paying, I think it's like $15 or something for the lowest tier.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can probably afford it by that point. So I don't think anybody's offering a tool that you can use for free indefinitely in this space. Yeah. I think it's always like free for up to 1,000 subscribers or up to 500 subscribers or something, and then it kind of increases with the number of subscribers.
I think there was a newsletter plugin for WordPress where you could devise newsletters and kind of send them through the site. I think it still exists, but it may not be the best option. But then again, it is a free option. I just like speaking from the email marketing perspective, it may not be the best option because if it's being sent by your site and it's not being sent by an email provider, then it's more likely to go into junk.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know much about it, this part of the business, and as you know, I'm not big on email, even though I probably should be. But yeah, all I know is how to set up a basic autoresponder, pretty much, and send out a newsletter.
Yeah. All right. So we've covered email. Then next up is social. After you wrote your blog or you did a song or you did a video, you probably want to get some eyeballs on your work. So social is the next step to promote your work. And for that, I use the Sumomi plugin. And as mentioned earlier, it just makes it easier to share, especially images over to social networking sites. In my case, from my language blog, I will send a whole bunch of images over to Pinterest. And the article itself, I could post to Facebook. Well, those I don't really care for. Mostly, I use it for getting images over to Pinterest.
I see. Yeah. In the past, I used to use a tool called CoSchedule, which is essentially a editorial calendar sort of tool. But you could post directly on Facebook and on LinkedIn and Twitter and whatever straight from the tool, even to WordPress. But I stopped using it, and right now, I'm actually not using any sort of social media schedulers or that sort of tools. But one other tool that I want to mention in this category of kind of promotion / marketing tools is Ad Inserter. And there's a plugin for WordPress. And I believe you use it too, right? But essentially what it allows you to do is just insert specific blocks of HTML code into different parts of your website. So you could like insert them under the post title or insert them at the end of every post, or insert them at the very bottom of the page or whatever. And then you can also choose like different filters. So only show it on posts of this category, or only show it on posts of this author, and things like that. And the thing I use it for is, one, I insert like pieces of text that have a link to some of the products that I sell, but also for just things like inserting disclaimers. So if you're doing affiliate marketing, you have to tell that the links in this post are affiliate, and I may earn some commission and things like that, right? Just to kind of comply with the requirements.
Yeah.
So I use the plugin to do that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
What do you use it for?
Well, you recommended it to me, so I'm using it for the affiliate disclaimer on every single post on 2 of my blogs.
Yeah, it's a powerful plugin,
Yeah.
And it's free. It's another one that's free. So yeah, I think you definitely seem to be much better at the promotion aspect than me, because I barely do anything these days in terms of email or social, even though I probably should. But I guess for the listener, SumoMe might be worth checking out then, out of the list of the ones that we talked about. And yeah, and for email providers, use Aweber, and I use MailerLite.
I think it would be easier for the listener to go with MailerLite, just simply because it's free. And then, like, like if there's 1,000 person limit, it's in a way it's kind of a lot, So, but that, again, if you're new to email marketing, you're not going to get 1,000 people really quickly unless you're a miracle worker or you really know what you're doing. So at that point, I definitely would go for the free option first.
Yeah, that sounds like a good advice. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it about the promotion/marketing tools. And I guess the last category that we have here are kind of like planning/project management/communication/ whatever else there might be to do with your blog, right?
I think this is where you shine. This is your area, because you say you don't like to write too much. If all of your writers do the work for you, and you don't do much promo marketing, so this is your area of expertise right here.
Yeah, I guess you could say so. I think I've been focusing much more on kind of this part of the business than on the other ones that we were talking about recently. But I use a tool called Notion, which I think everybody should check out. And it's a bit hard to learn at first, but it's essentially a project management tool slash note taking app slash pretty much anything. So it's really flexible, and I use it for just keeping track of the different pieces of content that I'm producing. So I have like a database of the articles that I write, and then they all have status like keyword and create brief, create WordPress draft, outsource, write, edit, whatever. So I just use that kind of to keep track of the progress and to stay on top of things. And then I use Google Sheets for outsourcing to writers. So I have a separate Google Sheet spreadsheet for each of my writers, and then I just copy paste the Google Docs URLs in there. So those are kind of the two tools that I use to manage the blog operations. And then I use Evernote for just like random notes whenever I get an idea or something. And I use a tool called Things for just for keeping track of tasks, whether it's blog related or client related or paying bills or whatever it might be, any sort of thing I have to do essentially. And I wrote an article on my personal blog about all of these kind of, I guess you could call them productivity tools. So I'll link to that in the show notes if anybody wants to read more. But yeah, those are kind of the tools. I don't know. So how about you? Do you essentially just decide to write this article today and then just send it off to the writer? Or is there some sort of process that you follow? Or? In
the case of planning, I think it starts with, for me, Google Analytics, like we mentioned earlier. I'll go take a look. Like first, if I have the desire, Yuri, let's make some new content. Where do I get the ideas from? I go to Google Analytics, start taking a look, and again, take a look at what's there and what else I could do. But I think it definitely pen and paper actually play a big role for me, because if I have a bunch of free time, I think the best way to like plan things out is to write things out of my head and onto like a physical piece of paper, and that's where I can kind of evaluate these ideas and act on them. So I do use Google Sheets, but I use them more for tracking, or for like, for example, if I have like affiliate links that I want to stick in, like in the case of languages, you need link number 1 for a certain language, link number 2 for a different language. So I store that kind of info there. And if I do like a really long-term not a long-term project, but a really like a heavy project that requires 34 different articles around a similar kind of topic, I'll do the tracking there, just to like have a checklist to like done. I did the Japanese language, did the Korean language, blah, blah, blah. I still have like 30 plus more to go or something. But for the most part, I think it's like pen and paper, or I'll use like the notepad. And then once I've planned stuff out, I'll just send a message to a writer on Upwork and just send them that outline.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think I guess in on this topic we're kind of on the very opposite ends of the spectrum, right? And it's always interesting to see how different people run their blogs for me. And I think there are some people that just go overboard with their tools, and then there are some people that just use pen and paper and just message their writers on Upwork, and they manage to build like 6-figure blogs. So I think there's definitely no right answer here, and it probably comes down to like preferred style, right?
Yeah. The reason I like pen and paper is I think writing is one of these things where you can examine your own thoughts as they come out. You know, like if we're thinking about things in our head, we're still kind of very much attached to them. But it's only when we're either talking to someone or putting it down on paper that we can examine it from a third person perspective. And to that point, I think it just helps me, well, it gives me clarity on what to act on.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think I told you I've got myself a decent size, a Windows sized whiteboard like a few weeks back, and it's been one of the favorite things in my office. I just stand next to it, and if I want to figure out like what thing to outsource next, then I just write down all the things that I'm doing right now, and kind of just take a step back and look at it, and I'm like, oh, this is really easy, and this is something I do like 10 times a week. Maybe somebody else can do it for me. Or like if I want to plan out content, I'll just write down all the different kind of topic areas that I have on my site, and like, oh yeah, this topic I still think there's a lot of things to write about, and let me look at it closer. So yeah, I think for that sort of higher level planning or like brainstorming or just getting clarity, like you said, I think pen and paper and whiteboard can be like indisposable tools.
What do you have written on there right now?
Right now it says keyword, and it's got arrows going to brief and links in Excel, right? Edit and write box description format publish. So that would be like I'm trying to outsource essentially the whole process of creating a blog post that's about list of recommended products. So I just wrote it out step by step, and now I'm trying to figure out how to kind of implement it into the tools like Notion. Then I have SOPs and best text articles formatting, assigning articles to writers. Essentially, just a list of things that I want to have my VA do for me going forwards.
And where does that whiteboard sit? Is it like in your direct line of sight, or do you have to turn around to see it somewhere?
Unfortunately, it's behind me because I'm sitting in the corner, and then the whiteboard's literally sitting in my window frame, and it's behind me. But yeah, I can just spin on my chair, and I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I have notes posted up on my door, but now I realize it's not the best place to have them posted up because my door is usually open, like the door to my room. So it's way out of view. I should probably rethink that.
Yeah, on my door, I only have like a hook where I just put a bunch of different bags that I use.
Okay, but yeah, I should probably move the post-it notes elsewhere because like they also have my long-term overarching goals, like whether website or side hustle or personal.
Yeah.
But I don't really look at that because the door is always open, which means it's like that side is like facing the wall, so it's way out of view. I should really reconsider that.
You should get a whiteboard. Like I realized myself when I'm in the kitchen or in the bedroom or like living room or something, and then every now and then I just get an idea for whether it's like a piece of content or for some sort of stuff that I'm doing for a client or whatever it might be. I just run into the office and just scribble it down on the whiteboard. It's a really nice tool to have because it's always there. And like when I walk into my office, I can see it and I can be like, oh, I should note this down somewhere else, or oh, I should do this, or things like that. So it's probably one of the most useful tools that I have around me.
I think I need to get that. Like, okay, yeah, you're right.
Expensive.
How heavy is it?
It's pretty heavy, but it can sit comfortably in like a wooden window frame that I have here.
Okay, because I don't have a window frame. I just have like a giant balcony window door thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it to fall on somebody.
Okay.
Outside. but you can get one that has like a stand and that can be rolled around if you have the space for that, or
yeah, or I could get a really big calendar.
Yeah, actually, I think they have like really light ones, really thin ones that you can stick to the wall. So that might be an option too. But mine's probably like a meter times a meter and a half or something.
I like the fact that it's so big that you can't miss it. I think that's the most important aspect of like just, again, if you have like ideas in your head or if you have something that you want to keep in mind, having it always there is a good way to like just, having it so big that you can't miss it This is
Yeah,
good, I think.
exactly. And at the top left, I have a box that just says three priorities, and next to it is like a website launch checklist kind of thing, and just
Yeah.
like 30 boxes for 30 articles that I want to write or that I want to have somebody else write. And yeah, it's just a nice way to keep things visual.
Visual is the way to go. Any other tools? I'm pretty low on tools in the planning and communication area, mostly because I don't know, I guess for now I don't really need a wide variety. I just need something to write down with, and after that I'll just pass it over to a freelancer to get it done. Again, my side hustle isn't as a on a I guess on a scale as yours, where like, you know, you need more systems in place. Since I'm more casual about it.
Yeah, I think I guess it really depends on like to what extent you want to scale or how much you want to scale, or like do you want to post regularly or do you just want to post kind of when you decide to do so, and things like that. So yeah, other tools. The only one that I noted down here, as you see, is free, but that's a Japanese tool. So unless you're in Japan, then there's no sense in checking that one out. But I think like the foreign equivalent of that in the US would be like QuickBooks or something, or Zero, and it's essentially just an accounting software.
Yeah.
And in the first week of every month, I just do all my bookkeeping and like all the revenues from both my websites and my clients. I just record it and all the expenses, and I think it's good to stay on top of things and just kind of it will save you a surprise at the end of the year when it comes to like doing the tax return. And it's also good to know how much money you're making and how much money you're spending and kind of where you stand.
Yeah, I use Google Docs spreadsheets for that, but I only kind of dig into it when it's time to file.
Yeah, I think there's two types of people in that too. There's those that just do it at the end of the year, and then some that try to do it monthly. I just find it like even all the tax sort of things aside, I just find it good to know just how much the site made, or how much I made from a client, or how much I made from the other client, or how much I made from the other side. And it's kind of like checking the pulse of a patient, right? To me, it's like the basic metrics: revenue and expenses.
Yeah, and if something's going down, then it needs your immediate attention.
It can also be motivating as long as it's going up.
I think even going down is pretty motivating. Like, you know, with the most recent Google algorithm change, it seems like it's going to be a topic that I end up bringing up quite often, surprisingly. But it's kind of motivating to like lose, and you're like, all right, you're fired up to do it again.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah, because same with me when Amazon struck or Google changed their algorithm or something. It just kind of motivated me to figure out a way to make that money back.
Yeah,
and it was like a kick in the back to push it forward.
It's like the fire, that's that motivation you need. It's the spirit of Rocky Balboa, for those who know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it for the tools. I think one last thing that before signing off, one last thing that we should probably talk about is do the tools even matter? Or is it really important to choose the right tools? Or how important it is? Do you have any views on that?
Well, they're kind of like three questions in one in a way, right? Let's do it one by one.
Sure.
Do tools matter? Yes. And the reason is, well, how does one bring it down to the most basic thing? Like if you want to crack a nut, you need a hammer or a rock. You can't do it with your hands, right?
Yeah.
So in the sense, yeah. So in a sense, a tool is just what makes something easier for you to do. For example, I was thinking Grammarly, while imperfect in catching all my typos, it'll get enough to the point where I don't have to worry about, I don't have to worry too much about posting an article filled with typos.
Yeah.
Makes life easier. It expedites the task. Rather, it expedites the result and makes your job, I guess, easier to do. So if it makes your job easier to do, yes, it matters, and it's good to have.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think tools definitely matter in kind of the most simplest form of the question, because like you just said, if you don't have a hammer or something, then you can't crack a nut. Or if you need to nail a hammer into a wall, then you need a hammer or you need a rock or whatever. So tools do matter. That said, I think choosing between tool A and tool B is not always as important as some people make it out to be.
Agreed.
And like some people spend time agonizing whether should I go with Aweber or should I go with MailerLite. And other people will tell you, oh, you got to go with MailerLite because they're probably getting affiliate commissions from MailerLite.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to choosing the specific tools, it definitely doesn't matter nearly as much as some would like you to believe.
I'll give you one example where it did matter.
Yep.
So back in the day, I think with one of my very first blogs. I have a developer friend, and he is very hot on Drupal, which is also like a CMS system of sorts.
Yeah.
Problem is, Drupal has an incredibly high learning curve, and because I didn't know any better, I was like, "Oh, okay, thanks for the advice." So I used Drupal, but it was just such a pain to get anything going because it required coding experience. Maybe I'm not so smart, but either way, just like all the struggles that I've had with it, it could have been easily done with WordPress.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
Essentially, I wasted so much time trying to learn it and trying to fix my own bugs that I'd have been miles ahead down the road if I went with WordPress in the first place.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Now that you bring that up, because I'm sure there's also email tools that are just so hard to use that it doesn't make sense to try them. Probably like the WordPress plugin that you were mentioning, among other things. But yeah, I guess you have to kind of look at what other people are recommending, but not take the recommendation as set in stone, but still kind of as a guideline, because you clearly don't want to be cracking a nut with a rock unless you have nothing else available.
Yeah, there's a bit of nuance. Like if there's a high learning curve and you're a beginner, probably you might want to steer clear of that. You should at least check what's involved with the tools that you're taking on. I'm of the opinion that really the type of tool that, I mean, like, you shouldn't be too picky. Like, choose whatever is the easiest and does the best job, but at least be aware of like if there's a learning curve and what's involved. And don't make the mistake of trying to take on something that makes a task harder than it should be. If there's a tool that makes posting articles easier, then go with that instead of learning how to code, if that's your ultimate goal.
Yeah, exactly. I think just don't agonize over the decision. Like, if you find two tools that are like 80% equal, then just choose one and go with it, because it probably doesn't matter. But if there's some like more basic level kind of decisions, like should I use WordPress or should I use or should I code my own site? Then if you code your own site, then you're probably crazy nowadays. For the most part, if you're trying to start like a simple blog, not talking about anything custom or stuff like that. So yeah, I guess the answer is really depends, like with everything else.
It depends, but definitely go for what makes life easier, and you can figure out the rest later.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the second thing you said, you can figure out the rest later. Is a good way to close this podcast down, because even if you choose the wrong tool in the beginning, you can just always switch for the most part. If it comes to like email provider or to plugin or to project management tool or something. But if you make a wrong decision on kind of the infrastructure level, so like building a site on, what was it you said, Drupal?
Drupal, yeah.
Yeah, so building your site on Drupal instead of WordPress or something, and you build it up to like 500 articles, then it's really hard to change if it's that sort of tool. But if it's just kind of like a tool that works on the surface, that's not the infrastructure per se, then I think it's pretty hard to make a mistake that will have kind of long-lasting repercussions.
Agreed. So, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on the podcast app. It helps us with visibility. If you like this podcast, definitely rate us, leave us. If you saw this posted somewhere on Facebook, do leave a comment. We're always happy to hear from you. And to get the list of all the tools that we talked about today, check out the notes at sidehustlesandstuff.com/E10. This is actually the 10th episode. Keishi, I think 10 is a milestone.
Yeah, 10 is definitely milestones. Probably like 10 hours of content, hopefully of good content. And yeah, here's to the next 10 episodes.
All right. So, guys, also, if you want to start your own blog, do check out Bluehost. We'll recommend it in the notes. Bluehost is a hosting service. All you do is just buy .com. Now you have your own website. You can go ahead and start putting out your work into the world. It offers, again, I think they're mostly WordPress. Keishi, do they offer anything else?
They're just the web hosting, so we can do whatever we want. But yeah, if you want to start a blog, then definitely use WordPress, I think.
All right. So check it out. The link is in the lesson notes. Again, this is the Side Hustles and Stuff podcast with Keishi and Yuri. And we'll see you next time.
See you in the next episode.
It's blooper time. Their own plugins. Again, blah, blah, blah.
Without having to dig all the...
And to make content, we all use all kinds of Again, I was going to say stools. And stools is not the right word.
Squatty potty.
Basically, it checks This is the Side Hustles and Stuff podcast with Keishi and Yuri.